muted.
Well, good morning, everybody. My name is Patrick Baker. I'm the president of Constructive Solutions. I'd like to first thank you for your time today. We're going to be featuring, this is the third in a series of webinars, and we're going to be focused on Timberscan. It's an enterprise document management solution, but today's focus is going to be on the paperless AP approval capabilities of the solution, which seems to be where most people start with the technology. We're joined by Sailor Hal, who's a senior sales manager with Core & Associates, the publisher of Timberscan, and Sailor is going to be leading the presentation today. So if you'd like to record just some housekeeping, if you have questions, you know, I've muted everybody because there's some feedback and it allows you to talk more a little freely amongst yourselves, but if you have any questions, feel free to type them in. And throughout the presentation, we'll stop a couple of times to see if there are any questions. So, you know, I'd just like to add that Timberscan is very widely used within our client base. We have over 150 customers that use the paperless AP approval. Some use the Capture, some use AIM, which is their full document management solution. And they have a couple more new products. They continue to build out their portfolio of products based on client demand and client requirements. So I'm going to now make Sailor the presenter. He's going to share his computer with us, and he's going to give us a brief introduction on who Core is, and then we'll spend the majority of our time in the paperless AP approval solution. Sailor?
Thank you, Patrick. I appreciate that introduction. Can you see my screen?
I can.
Good. Okay. Well, thanks again, everyone, for joining the call today. We recognize that everybody's busy and your time is at a premium, so we appreciate your time today. I wanted to start by presenting who Core Associates is, the founders of Timberscan, and kind of what our vision has been, which directly affects our clients. And as we evolve, we were founded in 2004. And were specifically designed for, at the time, Timberline, now Sage 300 CRE. And we came into the fold of Sage as a Sage development partner. What that means to you is, and what that means as you begin to look at Timberscan today, is that the integration and the availability of information that we have back and forth between Timberline and between or Sage and Timberscan is a seamless flow. It's real time, up to the minute, and we have open access to their databases. So as we come out with new versions, new products, new enhancements, it's not only compatible with Sage new versions, but it's also compatible with any level of integration that basically that you're looking for. It's seldom that we find things that we can't do within the system. You'll see the seamless integration as we go on. So let's go ahead and move forward. I'm just going to cover a couple of quick slides here so we can jump straight into the software. But first I wanted to mention the AP routing and approval of invoices is really where Timberscan built its success. We started obviously with just a few Timberline customers that came onto Timberscan. Today we have over 1,500 customers, over 25,000 users. And since we built our success on Timberscan AP routing and approval, our clients came back to us and they said, hey, you guys have done great with Timberscan, we love it, but what do we do with all our other documents? What do we do with HR-related documents, time cards, you know, plans, daily reports, job checklists, these kinds of things? Well, we created what we call Enterprise Content Management. The product is called AIM, or Advanced Image Management, and this handles all other documents besides invoices and supporting documents. Our clients then said, hey, at the end of the month, at the end of a job, we're getting bottlenecks of just tons of invoices and processing, and it's bottlenecking our tying, you know, loose ends in the job and trying to end the job. So do you have any kind of options with technology to help us facilitate that processing a little faster? What we did is used an optical character recognition technology called Capture. That's what the module is called, and it will essentially auto-code invoices for you based on templates you've built for those vendors. We'll take a quick look at Capture today, and then move on from there as well. Finally, mobile eForms and Commander, which I'll touch on real quickly. mobile approvals for Timberscan is device agnostic. So your personnel are not locked into an office environment. If they need to be out on the job or in the field traveling, they can access Timberscan on their iPhone, on their Android device, on a tablet, on a PC, really anywhere on a website or on an iPad. So really any device. And then finally, eForms and Commander, which we're really excited about. We'll touch on eForms today, and if there's a level of interest based on what I'm explaining, then certainly follow up with Patrick, and we can book a more personalized demo to take a deeper dive into those products. But eForms essentially is a smart forms creation tool that can consolidate many applications that you might be looking at, and consolidate a lot of processes and fully integrate those with Timberline and Timberscan. So things like credit card reconciliation, capturing receipts from the field, and other things like that, purchase order creation from the field, integrating that with Timberscan, ultimately creating commitments and job costs, that kind of thing. The level of integration is insurmountable. It's just, we've just done a really good job with that. I'm excited about that, as you can tell. And then Commander essentially is a print engine like your Adobe Print to PDF option on your computer. Now within Sage, you can press Print to Commander and take something like 100 AR bills, and instead of printing each one out and stuffing an envelope and sending it on, or printing it to PDF and emailing it one by one with an email message, you can now with one click send it out to all the appropriate emails that they go to your customers with a canned email message as well. So that's just one example of many ways that we can automate your Sage data and take things that are taking days down to hours or less. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and jump into a quick process flow of how Timberscan works today. So what we do today and how Timberscan will differ from your current process is you're currently processing in Timberline. Well, you'll start processing them and bring them into the system now in Timberscan instead. Timberscan processes in batches, just like in Sage 300 CRE today. And what you'll do is you can pull documents in several different ways, which we'll go over in the software. They then go to a step called initial coding or data entry. In Sage, you have to fully code an invoice. But in Timberscan, they can be partially coded in case of a subsequent approver in line might know a cost code or some other kind of information that the data entry person doesn't know. We can support multiple levels of approval once they're sent on. The next approver in line, once an invoice is approved, will receive an email message that says, hey Bob, you've got 6 invoices in Timberscan for approval. So he can then log into the system and approve and send on to the next person. We can support multiple levels of approval based on dollar thresholds and multiple workflows. For instance, you don't want to send utility bills for approval to your project managers. We can send those through a different routing of approval. If you want to approve by job, by vendor, by different things, by cost code, you can do that within the system. We have some companies who are international in Canada, in the United States, several other areas, and they have multiple sites that are doing processing, and at each site they might have 20 different levels, workflows of approval. So we match your business rules. So if this doesn't match exactly the workflow that you might be looking for, let's talk about that. We most likely can match your current business process today. We then go, after approval, to a step called final review. This is typically an accounting function, sometimes can be managerial staff if you would like. And all we're doing at this stage is ensuring that an electronic packet, which is what we mean by that, is that the invoice and any supporting documents, like a PO, receiving ticket, a lease, a lien waiver, what have you, is all together. We're ready to pay that invoice. Everything's good with the vendor. 2 things happen at that point, which we're going to start looking at here in just a minute. It's going to post to Timberline to be selected for payment. It's also going to include all of that electronic packet, those images, in Timberline in AP, in the invoice record. Everything that happens along this process is reportable and searchable. So our goal is, and today this is the major theme, is we're forcing the process of approval, making it 100% accurate based on your business rules, and also providing all of the financial information that you need to make a sound decision on approving your invoices without having to go into two systems. Now you're in one system. All right? With that, unless, Patrick, you have anything else to add to that, I'll go ahead and jump into Timberscan.
Yeah, I think we should get to the product. Thanks, Taylor.
All right. Okay, so I'm going to start here in Timberline and AP, and what I want to show you is kind of the end product of what we see once invoices are posted to Timberline. If I go into AP and I do a quick AP transaction inquiry, which you're all familiar with, I've got my vendors here, and we'll start with Power Equipment Rentals down here. Here's all of their invoices. If you have an attachment, you can see this paperclip will have a piece of paper on it. We'll start with this invoice and click the attachment. Now, these are invoices that have already gone through Timberscan for approval, and Timberscan automatically put them into Sage for you. So at this point, we're looking at the invoice, a sticky note that was attached to it, entered in Timberscan. Timberscan created an automatic approval page with time-stamped and date of each user and how they affected the invoice. Had you scanned in a signature for that user, then those would show up here. We've got a PO and a copy of the check. All of this can be emailed directly out of Sage. So parts of Timberscan are sitting inside Sage already. This is part of the power of the integration. So we're going to have this in both places. But let's go ahead and start and see what that looks like from the beginning.
And Taylor?
Sure.
Taylor, just to add, when that same invoice, if you can drill down through the job, you can drill down through the AP vendor, or you can drill down through the GL. And whenever you get to that transaction, that same docket of information is going to be there, correct?
Yes. You can't drill down through the GL, to my understanding, but you can drill up or through AP.
Yeah, so wherever that transaction resides in any inquiry, that paperclip will be populated and you'll have access to that docket. Is that correct?
Yes.
Great. Thanks.
Sure. All right. So let's go ahead and jump into Timberscan. So what you'll see here, this is my main window in Timberscan. Here at the top, I've got a few tabs that follow the life cycle of an invoice, from acquiring an image to data entry, approval, final review, and reports and inquiries. And then I have a few buttons here at the bottom that just follow the association of that particular tab. You can see I have a dashboard here to view all my invoices by kind of however I'm wanting to filter those and look at multiple at once. But I'm going to first go and acquire an image here. Now, when I pull documents into the system, I can do that a number of different ways. I can take a document from my email and drag and drop it here from a PDF. I can pull invoices here from my server if I'd like to, or my desktop. Or I can drag and drop them from my desktop just right from here. If I have a dedicated scanner or network scanner, I can set up multiple here and have it pull from there. I'll make this full screen so you can see it. We can zoom in or zoom out of our invoices just by the scroll of our mouse. And then we have several edit options here on the right. So if it comes in upside down, I can flip it. If it's speckled, I can despeckle it, several other options. And again, we can use a sticky note if we'd like to put one on the invoice. This will follow the life cycle of the invoice. But I want to point your attention here to this invoice number is 393. The second page is invoice number 394. So real quickly, I can go up here to mark as new invoice and separate the two. So I can go through 40, 50 invoices here pretty quickly and manually separate them. The system does give me, at the onset of the screen, several different automatic separation options. But the goal of this screen here is to make sure that our invoices that we've brought in are separated properly. They're legible for processing, so we can go ahead and send on. Down at this field here, we're going to make sure that we've decided, is this an invoice? Do we have manual checks that we want to bring in? If you're using an automatic check scanner, you won't have to use this step, that would be circumvented. But if you had supporting documents like PO, receiving ticket, etc., those could be brought in here. So I'll go ahead and process this invoice. All right, and then we'll go to data entry. So you can see I've got 4 invoices in my current folder. And as I bring this up here, I'm going to go to my next invoice in line. So what will happen, you're seeing these pop-ups here. I've actually started coding this invoice already. If you're using the compliance module in Sage, all of the vendor insurance warnings, lien waiver warnings are going to pop up in Timberscan as well if you're already using that in Sage. So this is part of the power of the system. You're going to get up-to-date integration here. The first thing I want to point your attention to, though, here's the data entry grid here at the bottom. This may not look like your setup today in Sage, but this is my setup in Sage. So day one, when I installed Timberscan on my machine, what happened is Timberscan not only pulled historical data from Timberline, it also replicated the data entry grid that I have in Timberline. So these are all my setup. So if I start coding this invoice, if your users know how to use Timberline, they're going to know how to use Timberscan pretty easily. I've got my list lookups here at the bottom. So if I know part of my vendor number, name, or address, I can just start typing it here. I can see their vendor insurance is out of compliance. So you might want to check with them on that. And then I start putting in the number here. If I've got this invoice of another user had entered it into Timberline or Timberscan already, it's going to let me know this exists in Timberline. So it's looking into both systems. So perhaps we don't remember this invoice coming in. We want to take a deeper look into that record. We can click on our history button there at the bottom and go into this inquiry here. Now this is really important. The inquiries here in Timberscan are all similar to this in that they're going to provide the historical information that's already in your Sage system in these inquiries. They're also going to give you a very easy and user-friendly ability to sort just by clicking on the top of one of these headers. Or if I wanted to look at any invoice from this vendor, maybe by status, I just drag that to the top, and I can filter even further from there. You know, by status and by description, I can do that, but I can start over if I'd like. All the images are included to the right, and you can see these grayed out buttons here that say no image. These are all invoices that never came through Timberscan. They reside in AP. So again, day one when I installed Timberscan, it pulled in all of my historical data, and let me point out the metadata, meaning just the data itself, not the images automatically, which can also be brought into the system. So a lot of flexibility here. If I do that sorting and look at that invoice, there's 24011, and I view the image. Here's exactly what you saw in Sage attached. So it's gone throughout the system. There's my approval page, my PO, and my check. So this was the one that we were looking at in Sage. But let's assume that for demo purposes, this is a brand new invoice. We'll go ahead and add a 1 here and tab 1 through. My same function keys work in Sage today. If you're using commitments and job cost or POs and job cost, again, we can click our list. It's going to have a live lookup into job cost for you. And based on this vendor and that commitment, it knows which jobs you have set up in Sage. Excuse me. So based on that information, it knew what was tied to that vendor, that commitment, and that job. It filled out the rest of the coding for me. If I needed to do multiple levels of distribution, I could here. And basically what we've done in this screen here in Timberscan, this is what I like to say where the magic happens. This is the one screen, one area of the system that gives you the ability to look at all financial information you need to make a sound decision on an invoice. And we do that 3 ways. One is we give you, for those of you who are using commitments and job costs, we give you some quick budget information here on the right. So I can see for this invoice, what's been committed on that commitment, what's been invoiced against it, in job cost, what's been invoiced against it in Timberscan, the balance between the two, any retainage, and several other pieces of information. If this invoice is going to take this commitment over, these numbers will turn red and I'll get a pop-up that we're going over budget. Also, I have that same information if I just hover over here over my commitment that I've coded. Maybe I want to know what this job is for. So this is for Northwest Food Warehouse. I can see the job-to-date bill amount, or I don't know what this cost code is for. It's for dewatering, and I get some financial information variances for that as well. So that's the second way that we get financial information at our fingertips. The third way and final way here is this job button here at the top. For those of you who are doing any cost plus or time and material billing, maybe you're doing loan draws with the bank, or just want to do some further cost analysis, we have I know there's a lot of data here, but this is a pretty simple inquiry that gives you a lot of good information. So let's just say this is all the information that's a Timberline and a Timberscan all in one spot. This is what I call the one-size-fits-all report. So maybe I want to look at everything by vendor, and under that, let's find one of our vendors here that has a lot of invoices, Pacific Petroleum. Then we want to look at everything by status. So now I've filtered everything by vendor and by status. Now I can do a couple of things here. I have my images over here to the right. If I scroll to the right, I can export I can export this report to Excel the way I filtered it. I can print the grid the way it looks, or I can go to this report button, send it to a printer, a viewer, a PDF, burn it to a CD. But what's really powerful about this report is I've done some filtering here, and the way I want to group it by all of these, I can send that to one file with all of the images attached. So for those of you who are having to pull financial reports maybe based on cost code or based on vendor or job, we can pull those reports now and not have to print the invoices one by one. A quick example of that here, I've got a quick report, oops, it came up on my other screen, that I filtered by cost code. So I've got my cost codes on the left, vendor name, status, description, and amount. Pretty simple report. And then so you can see here what I'm talking about, I've got all of my invoices here for that report filtering at the end. Pretty powerful. You have nearly everything that you need for reporting right there. That's not all. We've got a lot more reports that are specific to different areas that you might want to look at. But let's assume that this invoice is for $1,200. This probably hasn't happened with anybody on the call, but the vendor told us that that scraper rental for 2 days was going to be $1,000, and we got an invoice for more than the purchase order. So maybe we need to put this on hold and give that vendor a call. What we can do is put it on hold, and it won't hold up the rest of the batch for processing, so we can move those on down the line. But if this information was correct, everything was as they said it would be, and we're ready to pay them, but maybe their vendor insurance is out of compliance. This user does not have the ability on here, but we could put it on hold in AP and send it on through the levels of approval in Timberscan. It would only just be on hold for payment in AP. So you've got some abilities to customize these buttons based on user and really build some security there in your workflows. So we can email out of the system, and it will access our Outlook emails, Timberscan and Timberline. If we didn't want to clutter up the invoice with a sticky note, we could just add a comment here. It would show up for the next user before they could affect the invoice. And we can reject and send to a previous user. But if we're done with this invoice and we like it, we can click accept, move on to the next one and the next one, then click finish, and it will send these approved invoices to subsequent approvers in line who will receive an email letting them know, Bob, you've got 6 invoices to approve. Okay? One last thing here, if you're using a second monitor, you can pull your distribution grid over to the side if that's getting in the way of the invoice image. The last thing I'll point out here is we've got the invoice here. Where are our RPOs? Where are our delivery tickets, our supporting documents? We probably already have those in a folder somewhere. What we can do is just click on supporting documents here and find the document that we had scanned into the system in our first screen for acquiring images. We click on our purchase order or whatever document we have, and we just click attach, and it will show up as a second page to this invoice. With that, I'll go ahead and move on to my next approver in line. And what I'm going to do here is pull up, I can show you just the approval here. The next approver in line can access this screen and just go ahead and approve his invoices like so. Or if you'd like him to, he can also access Timberscan this way on the web or on his iPad or iPhone or Android, what have you. So this is my next approver in line. There's my Timberscan app. If I go in to my invoices, I don't have to have an internet connection for this to work. Once I come back into one, it will update with any new invoices, and it will take any changes I've made and push them back into the system. So if I go to one of my invoices here, I can zoom into my invoice and take a look at several different areas anywhere I want. I've got my invoice header information here on the right, which I can change and adjust if I need to. Maybe an amount was wrong and we needed to correct that. I also have my invoice distributions here at the bottom. So there's not really any typing going on, but this is a live link into Timberscan and ultimately into our Timberline lookup. So let's say the job was incorrect here and we need to change that. So we changed that. We needed to add a cost code because the data entry person didn't know that cost code. It's for footings and maybe a category. So we have some really, really powerful options here that are easy to use. We can put on hold an AP, on hold, reject to a previous user, or approve. And we can email and add comments out of the system if we need to. If we just didn't want to approve this invoice, we could mark it up if we needed to, and then move on to the next one. So the only reason that we created mobile approvals for Timberscan is because a lot of our clients came back to us and they said, hey, we have a lot of good guys out in the field that have been with us 15, 20 years, but bringing new technology to them is kind of tough sometimes because they're trying to focus on the job and not train on some new software. So what we did is created this mobile approvals application that would make it very easy for them to use, not really require much training, and also provide a lot of functionality where they didn't have to come back in the office. So with that, I'm going to go to our final review stage before we post into Timberline. So once I go into final review.
Hey, Sailor, maybe before you move on, we have a question.
Sure.
Does the budget break, does the budget summary break it down for each commitment line item, and if there are multiple line items to a commitment? So when we're looking at the distribution, it'll align to the detail that you've entered it at, correct?
Yes.
Sorry, I was a little late in getting this question tabled. So
sure, absolutely. Yeah, so the multiple lines of distribution, we've got multiple commitments. We can certainly handle that. And yeah, not a problem. That's a core competency of what we do here. Was there any other parts to that question I may have missed?
No, I don't think so. Oh, thanks, he said, yeah. So no, I think we got it.
Cool. Okay, great question.
Awesome. I'll keep a closer eye on those.
No problem. So we're going to go to final review here, and any user or any approver, you know, you might have 40, 50 invoices in your folder, and you need to get to one real quick. We can filter all of our invoices by job or by vendor or by company, really however we need to. And then I've got a list of my vendors here. So I want to go to one specific invoice. We were working with power equipment rentals, so I'll jump into that invoice real quick. And here we go. There's our invoice. Somebody put a sticky note on it. Once the first approver approves, it's going to start creating your timestamped and dated approval page here by user. And then there's our PO. So everything looks good on here. At final review, I'm looking, we're not over budget, so it looks good. And we have everything we need in our electronic packet here. If we're ready to approve this, we can go ahead and queue for export. That's the same as accepting the invoice. We move on to the next one in the batch and the next one. Then we click finished. It gives us a quick summary of everything that we've just done. It will then post into Timberline and AP to be selected for payment. So it will also include the images that we looked at a little bit earlier. A couple other things I want to point out within the process. That's not all that we're doing as we're processing invoices. We're cutting checks. We're attaching checks to those invoices. We're signing checks. We're also checking the status of these invoices. Very, very important as well. Let's see, we got a question here.
Yeah, give me a sec.
Go ahead and jump into that.
Once you queue for
export,
export,
is that when the costs are posted? That's a good question. So the answer to that is yes. That's when the costs are posted. If you would like the costs posted before they get to the final stage of approval, what we can do is we have an accrual function that you can set up accruals through Timberscan so that your job cost reporting reflects those costs that are already in pending status, or those approvals that are in pending status. And then we can also create a reversal entry as well, if you'd like to do it that way. Great question. So
and then I guess just lastly to add to that, if you go through and you approve at final review, you can go through and you can approve a group of invoices, and that's one posting over into job cost, correct? Are you?
Yes. Yes. Okay. You can also approve another user's invoice in case somebody's out sick or on vacation. If you have the administrative rights, especially in final review, you have the power to do that to make sure that the flow of approvals is not hindered. But along that point, one of the most popular questions that I get in terms of reporting is, how do we know if some of our invoices are getting stuck in the line of approval? Our users today use this report daily, and they check it daily. This is our invoice status report. So I can drill down. I've got 25 invoices out there for $44,000. So I can see by user who's got how many invoices. Here's my data entry, here's final review, and my superintendent, Doug. Let's check out final review. They've got 19 invoices. So here's all of their invoices, the basic information for them, the amounts, and the images on the right. If I click on the image, it'll open up. If I needed to resort, I can do that. But this gives us that ability to check by user who's looking at what. So we're kind of at the end of the stage here of approving invoices, but how can we cut out a couple of steps of that process and really save us a lot of time? For those of you that have repeat vendors, you're using a lot of the same vendors each month, we can use what's called Capture OCR to auto-code those invoices based on templates we set up. Patrick, would you like me to spend a couple minutes on Capture?
Yeah, sure, if you'd like to, for sure.
Okay. So what we do, and kind of the idea of Capture, is using optical character recognition to take invoices, read the data, and code it into Timberscan for you so you don't have to do that. We start by setting up templates here. You can see I've got one template for each vendor, AAA Insurance. I have one for Cook's Lumber. And then under that template, under that umbrella, you might say, I've got different profiles set up by each job. So I'll show you why that's important. When I go in to set up a template for Capture here, again, I only have to set up one per vendor, so it's only done once. So I'm zooming into my invoice here. You can see the lettering here is green. That's the OCR technology reading the invoice already. It's going to lead us through a multiple step process once, and it's asking us to teach it how to recognize this invoice when it comes in. We're going to start by selecting anchors, and what those are is different areas on the invoice that are always on this invoice template from this vendor. They always put "Thank you for your business" down here at the bottom. They always put amount due here on the right, and the description. It always says description here. So now it's going to recognize that based on these anchors, these areas, it's from AAA Insurance. Then we move to an identifier. If you remember anything about Capture today, remember this part here. An identifier is, the purpose of this is to teach the system how to separate any particular invoice from another one from that same vendor. So you can see here, this particular vendor is always putting the job name on the invoice. So Clackamas Office Park, I'm going to use my identifier for that. That separates this invoice from others. If you want to use it for utility bills, for account numbers or maybe phone numbers, I've got a client who uses rental equipment on their jobs, and sometimes they have 100 pieces of equipment on any particular job, And so what she's doing is she's using the identifier for an equipment cost code that they put on their invoice. And based on this vendor and that equipment cost code or that job, whatever you're using here, we now have the ability to default code additional information like GL account code, cost code, commitment, what have you, and you can get kind of as granular as you want there. I'll show you what I mean here in just a second, but let's go ahead and teach the system how to read our invoice number. We're just going to make sure that this is resized and it's reading correctly here on the left. Go over my invoice date. And to my balance due and description, and then I'll skip over the rest. So if you've got multiple page invoices, it can support that. Here's my balance due. And my description, I do want to point out though that as we're reading the description here, we recommend that you only read the first line. It's hard to, get 100 lines of you don't really want 100 lines of text in your distribution grid. To that point, as it's coding invoices, it's only going to read the first line of distribution here and code that first line for you. Any additional lines of distribution need to be entered by your data entry person. We find though, and our customers find though, that that's really the way to do it because you want a step of review for this auto coding before you send it on for approval. And so adding a line of distribution at that point might only take 20 seconds or so. So once we finish this, we're going to go ahead and give the template a name here and start our profile. This only takes a couple of seconds. So my profile was based on job, if you remember. So it's Clackamas. I'm just going to confirm the vendor straight from Timberline. I'm going to confirm the job. Now I can default code anything I want. Here's cost codes, all my cost codes in Timberline, equipment codes, GL expense prefix, what have you. So the system is extremely flexible on molding to your business rules and auto-coding these invoices. And the way that looks in Timberscan is like so here. Let me make this full screen. So there's my AAA insurance invoice. You see my color-coded boxes where it read the header information? Those are automatically entered here. So if you pulled in and acquired 40 invoices and 20 of them had templates set up, the OCR functionality and capture would read those 20 invoices and you would start processing here instead of starting the beginning of the process. So it saves a ton of time. Based on that default coding, because it knew the job and the vendor, it coded the cost code, the category, account code, etc. here. Any one of these could be changed if you needed to, like so, just like we did before. And we can add our lines of distribution if we need to. We then move on for approval, and then we're done. So we're getting close to the end of the hour. I'm going to go ahead and just jump into to AIM.
Maybe one more question before you move on, Taylor.
Sure,
Can you go through how Timberscan deals with Visa data entry, etc.?
Yes. So with Visa data entry, are we talking? Yeah, are we talking more about bringing in our statement, credit card statement, and maybe reconciling transactions?
Dennis, why don't you elaborate on your question? Oh, Dennis, are you there?
Yeah. Yeah, I muted myself.
Okay.
Yeah, I use Visa a lot, and I just want to know, do I scan in each receipt? And like, what's the process? Because you get your statements, but am I scanning in every receipt throughout the week or the month, and then it matches up to my statement? Like, can you go through a Visa process?
Yeah, absolutely, and that is a great segue. We're going to jump into that here in just a moment and show you exactly how that process works within Timberscan. And that's a part of Timberscan called eForms, and we can do that really, really well. So thanks for asking that question. I'm going to point to Patrick. Would you like me to go ahead and address eForms or cover the last couple of things here in Timberscan?
Yeah, well, if you're going to get to eForms, why don't we see, are there any additional, you can go through, why don't you go through and just complete the presentation of Timberscan itself, and then maybe we can go into eForms.
Great. Sounds good. And Dennis, we'll get right to that. Appreciate the question. So a couple of last things here for Timberscan that we'll go over real quickly is if you're using an automatic check scanner, many times what we can do is automatically pull in checks or EFTs from Timberline. When we pull in those check images, we simply pick the batch number, the bank account, enter our starting check number, and Timberscan is going to marry those check images up to the invoices that they're paying. So that's why you saw a check image at the end of that invoice packet in Timberline and here in Timberscan. So that can be done really easily. If you're not using a check scanner and you're printing checks manually, you just print that batch, you scan them into Timberscan. We can do the same exact process and automatically marry those up. Another option for you is this review paid invoices option. What this allows us to do is by EFT or by check, again, if the check signer has a check sitting in front of him and he wants to look at all the invoice images, including the check, get the coding information, the header information, and the bank account information for that check, he can have all of that in one screen. And once he's done signing the check, he can click next check and go on to the next one in line in that batch. So really, really powerful. We no longer have to take that check image, attach it with a paper clip to that invoice, and have our stack and give it to the check signer. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and jump into to AIM real quick. I won't spend a lot of time in AIM, but essentially AIM is the document management portion of Timberscan for all other documents besides our invoices and related documents to those invoices. So credit card receipts, time cards, HR-related documents, job checklists, plans, really anything we can put in there. And it's not only storing and allowing us to retrieve the documents, although that's great, it's going to, when we classify a document into AIM, it can automatically put it into the attachment record, really almost into any module that you want in Timberline. Quick example of that is we bring in a change order, we classify it based on your classifications for those document types. In that change order, then because we entered the job in the classification, we'll go to the job cost job record, job photos, etc. Maybe we want time cards to go to into the employee record or into payroll. We can do that as well. So really, however you classify a document and drop it into Timberscan AIM, it will then attach to those different areas, but still be inside AIM for retrieval later on. Any of those documents can be routed around for approval if you would like, and just a lot of functionality there. So if you guys want to take a deeper look into that later on, we would be glad to take a little bit deeper dive into that. But with that, I'm going to jump into eForms real quickly and address the credit card discussion that Dennis brought up. So Dennis, that's a great point. That's exactly where I was going to go. I do want to point out that eForms is going to do several different things for us, and this is just one type of process that you guys can configure that's already built here. It can be configured to your business process, but there's four core features of what eForms does. First and foremost, it's a form wizard. You can build your own forms, and they're integrated with drop-downs and lookups into Timberline, just like Timberscan is. It's got workflows that you can set up for approval. You can report off of anything that's submitted with a quick Google keyword search, basically, in eForms. And for those of you that are storing all of your documents just on Windows today, on your server or on an FTP site, you don't have to do that anymore. Timberscan eForms is now going to automatically build and organize global folders for you online to be accessed anywhere based on what's submitted. And all of these documents that are submitted through eForms will automatically classify into Timberscan and to Timberscan AIM. I'll show you what I mean by that. Using the credit card example here, I'm going to go to my credit card app. Any of the forms that we build, like a daily report or anything else in the office, what we can do is push that out into an app. We make it active. Any changes we make to one of these forms or one of these apps pushes out to all the users out in the field and in the office. So let me reset this here. I'm going to pull up my Samsung Galaxy S7. So Dennis, I'm going to show you a proposed workflow pulling in our receipts, you can see my Timberscan app here and my eForms app. So I just click on eForms. I'm a user out in the field, or maybe I'm in the office and just want to do it from my office phone here. So I click on My Forms. Here's an example of all the forms that you get. We can do, timesheets from the field, field purchase requests, expense reports, what have you. I'm going to click on credit cards and start filling my credit card information out. So all I do is say, maybe we bought some nails from Home Depot, right? So I'll click my date here, last four of my card. Now this is really critical right here. I just start typing and it's going to pull in my vendors from Timberline, put my amount, reason for purchase, my expense codes, and this is all configurable. So if you guys want to add a field and require it or take one away, you certainly can do that real easily. It'll push out to the app. And then I can capture my receipt right here. So pull up my camera. Here's my receipt. I just click OK. And if I want to add additional information, I can. Here's my jobs. I just start typing. There's my job lookups, my cost codes, and what have you. So you kind of get the idea. Everything's integrated with Timberline. I just submit it from here and go from there. So right here on this screen, which you can see, I've got my Amex statement I've pulled in here through a CSV file. I can also pull it through an Excel file. Most providers will do that. You import the file here. All of the transactions from our credit card statement are going to populate here. All the receipts that were submitted over the phone or in the office, scanned in and brought in the office, are going to pull in here. All we have to do is click on Reconcile. Now what eForms will do is match all these transactions up. For the ones that didn't match, maybe some of our guys didn't know a cost code, they didn't know a job code or something else we required, we can go ahead and add that from live drop-downs in Timberline again, right here. Once we're done matching our transactions, all we have to do is go up here to Transfer to Timberscan. Now, eForms is going to include a detailed list of transaction summary or just a summary of those transactions in a statement. We can route it around for approval through Timberscan and then ultimately drop it into Timberline at that point. So kind of the arduous process of reconciling credit cards today, credit card receipts in Timberline, we've made much more efficient. And a lot of my users tell me, you guys are saving us days per person. With that, I'm going to go ahead and open it up for questions. eForms has been big for a lot of our clients with Timberscan as an add-on, and it really is open to the process that you want to build, and equipment tracking, really whatever you want to do with eForms, you basically can do it. So it's configurable to you guys. So thanks everybody for jumping on, and just want to open it up for more questions. Patrick, did you want to, is there anything you wanted to add? Okay. Well, I just wanted to ask everybody, what do you guys think? What do you think of Timberscan and Capture and eForms and mobile? We've kind of covered a lot here. Just kind of looking for some feedback.
Sorry, I was on mute there for a minute. I was saying, the purpose of today was sort of to introduce them to core and to focus on the paperless AP approval, which I think we've done you've done a great job of. I think, we touched on AIM, which instead of a paperless AP approval, it could be a PO approval, it could be a change order approval, it could be any document type that we can build workflows around and send through your organization and then classify, index, and link into the Sage inquiry system. The majority of our clients start with the paperless AP approval, then add in Capture, and now we're looking to add in forms. So, are there any questions with regard to anything that Sailor's presented today? And if not, we can sort of wrap. Maybe I have a question here. How about timesheet? So, not really a time capture. You could scan a timesheet and bring it through, but it won't scrape the entry for you. We have a number of different time capture solutions in the field.
Yeah, Patrick, I don't want to go too far through that, but if I could add something to that, if you would like me to, I can, in regards to the time entry.
Sure.
Okay, so basically through eForms and time entries can be complicated because everybody does it different, but we can build your own forms that will be pushed out to the app, and so from the field we can collect time that again will be direct linked into lookups for employees and jobs and vendors, etc. on your phone. That time will automatically, those time cards will be created and dropped into AIM, auto-classified, and ultimately, after a step of review, it can enter into payroll. Now, that is something that you can do and kind of configure to your business rules within eForms, and it's kind of up to you how you guys want to do that, but we can certainly talk about that further if you'd like.
Awesome. Thanks, Taylor.
Yes, sir.
All right. Well, hey, if there aren't any more questions, I want to thank everybody for their time today. Thank you for a great presentation, Taylor. And we'll be following up from Constructive Solutions with each of you today to define the next steps to support you in your investigation. Awesome.
All right. Thanks, Pat.